Okay, guys, so today we're going to be covering the beginnings of Islam and the beginnings of feudalism in Europe. On Friday, we talked about how um, Europe was sort of failing after the fall of Rome. People were moving around a lot. They were having problems with starvation, with invasions, and all of that. So that's all in Europe. The beginnings of Islam happen, of course, in the Middle East. And while Europe is floundering around and failing, places like the Middle East and China and India, they are all flourishing. They're all sort of hitting their stride in their heyday. So the beginnings of Islam are actually the beginnings of Christianity as well. So if you look at this chart, you don't have to write this down or anything, but this is just to show you how these two religions get their beginnings from sort of the same places. Abraham, who is one of the Christian prophets, he marries a woman named Sarah, and so you see that here. And Abraham and Sarah try pretty much all of their lives to have children, but it doesn't happen for them. And so Abraham and Sarah are constantly praying to God to give them children, give them a baby. And God says that He will, but Sarah gets a little impatient. So what she does is she tells Abraham that she wants him to what they called lay with her maid, and her maid's name was Hagar. And so Hagar and Abraham did have a child together. It's Ishmael here. And then just a few months later, Sarah gives birth to Isaac, who is Abraham's son. So Ishmael is sort of cast away by Sarah. Sarah hates Hagar now because she sort of resents the fact that Abraham's firstborn was with the maid. And so Ishmael sort of gets kicked out of Abraham and Sarah's family, and he is the father of the 12 Arabian tribes. So he has 12 sons that will become the Arab tribes that will become the Muslims. Whereas Isaac has two children, twins, Jacob and Esau. And Esau was cast out as well. He does a series of things that has him cast out. But Jacob gives he and his wife birth 12 sons, and these become the 12 tribes of Israel that you hear about a lot. So, the basics of Islam. Muslims believe that they are the original faith of the prophets. So, Muhammad is the person who sort of created the Islamic religion. And Muslims believe that Muhammad was the last and most important prophet in a string of prophets. So, all throughout the Christian Bible, we see prophets like Abraham and Isaac and Isaiah and Moses, and the Muslims believe that Jesus was a prophet as well. And so the main deal here is that Muslims do believe in one God. They refer to him as Allah, and it is the same God that Jews and Christians worship, because remember, all of these religions are sort of get their roots from the same place. So, what sort of made Muhammad sort of the creator of Islam is that in 610, um, he says that he received divine revelations from the angel Gabriel. And so he was in a cave, he was meditating, trying to figure out how to save the people. They had been doing really bad things like prostitution and gambling and so on and so forth. And so he has revelations from an angel of God. And these revelations would be written down in what's known as the Quran. And that's this word right here. It's also spelled Koran. And you might also see it with an apostrophe between the U and the R. So this is their holy book. This is like the Christian Bible to them. And it's sort of the foundation of Islam. And so Muslims also believe that Christians, Jews, and Muslims are all people of the book and that they are the followers of Allah. So the five pillars of Islam are the five things that Muslims have to do to be considered a Muslim. And so they are these. It's the Shahada, which is the testimony. It says there is no God worthy of worship except God. and Muhammad is his messenger, or Muhammad is the prophet, whichever way they want to say it. And so, what that means is that they believe in the oneness of God, and they believe that He is the only God. The next pillar is the Salat, which is mandatory prayer 5 times a day. And whenever Muslims pray, they always pray in the direction of Mecca, which is the city that Muhammad lived and started Islam in. And so in Muslim countries, the call to prayer happens 5 times a day, and it's given from a minaret. And that's what you see here. There are those towers. We saw them in the Church of the Hagia Sophia, the 4 towers on all the sides of the church. That's known as a minaret. And so you have, I can't remember what the people who call to prayer are called, but they go up in there, they blow horns, and they start singing to call people to prayer. Zakat is giving to the poor. That just means charity. Make sure that you are looking out for other people. And then the Psalm is fasting. So, abstaining from food and drink during the holy month of Ramadan. They can eat and drink after sunset, but not after sunrise. So they have to fast from sunrise to sunset each day. And then the last one, that's not really necessary, but you're supposed to do it if you can, is what's known as the Hajj. And this is a pilgrimage to Mecca. And so basically, it's like a list of things that Muslims have to get done in Mecca and Medina to be considered, a full Muslim. And so some people save their entire lives to be able to go on this trip. There's only about 2 weeks in the year that you can go on this trip. So millions of people are descending on Mecca and Medina at this point in time. You see this picture right here? This is what's known as the Kaaba. And this is I guess it's sort of like a temple, more like a shrine, I guess, to Muhammad and to God. So basically, this is the area that Muhammad blessed and sanctified for God. He took out all of the false prophets that were in there, and so there's relics in there. Anyway, this is sort of like the holiest place in Islam. And so all of these people that you see, the first thing you have to do when you get to Mecca is you have to go around the Kaaba. I think it's 7 times in a counterclockwise direction. So you'll see these people there. They look like they're standing still, but if this was a moving picture, you would see them going around the box like this. All right, so the spread of Islam. What happens is Muhammad is forced to flee his home city of Mecca, which is right here, because of his beliefs, and he settles in Medina. And in Medina, this is where he decides what exactly the beliefs of Islam are. In 629, he returns to Mecca, and he, like I told you earlier, he rededicates the Kaaba to Allah before dying in 632. And so Mecca, Medina, and also Jerusalem are the holiest cities in Islam. And remember that Jerusalem is also the holiest city in Judaism and Christianity. So when we talk about the Crusades, probably tomorrow, you will understand exactly why Jerusalem was so important to these religions. So initially, Islam spreads through trade routes in Arabia and Mesopotamia. So you can see sort of the arrows over here where it's going. As people are trading, they are exchanging ideas as well. So after Muhammad's death, excuse me, after Muhammad's death, caliphs, they were called caliphs, and they ruled caliphates. They were chosen, and they started to spread Islam through conquest under what they called the Umayyad and the Abbasid caliphates, which means that they were conquering all of these areas and spreading Islam through conquering instead of just sharing ideas. Okay, we'll be back in just a second.